So, I'm your host, Chris Bogue, and this is my show on LinkedIn Live, where I have conversations with cool people who will help you work more creatively. Today, my guest is Gabriel Blackwell. GB, please say hello to my audience and let them know where on the internet they can find you.
Yes. Hey, everyone. It's Gabrielle or GB. You can find me on LinkedIn. That's one place to go to. Otherwise, definitely check me out on the one-on-one.
Yes, the one-on-one, her newsletter. So we will be getting to that later on in the show during our shameless plug section. But maybe you want to know who I am. So hello, everybody out there. If you don't know who I am, my name is Chris Bogue. I am your host today. This is my show on LinkedIn Live, where we talk about monetizing creativity. I am a content creator and a coach. I coach people to make mercifully short video content. You can find me on LinkedIn. Go ahead and ring my bell. If you want to follow me for new updates about sales and marketing and comedy and improv and all sorts of fun things. And today's show is called Make It Look Easy. So we're going to be talking a lot about practice and performance and how to work up to a level where it looks effortless, even though it's not. So we've got a lot of great topics we're going to be discussing today. But before we do that, I want to throw it out to the comments there. So, Randy, I see you're already getting the conversation started. If you are watching this episode live, go ahead and drop a comment. We literally don't know that you're here if you don't do that. So go ahead, say hi, let us know where you're watching from today. If you have a question for me or GB about sales, about performance, about the ridiculous sketch we did with Vagueman and a strange dance-off, we will try to answer as many questions as we can throughout the show. Go ahead and leave a comment. We would love to hear from you. And let's get started. So, GB, I am very excited to have you on the show. I am a person who makes a lot of content. I'm out there on LinkedIn all the time, and also TikTok and Facebook and YouTube, and I'm out there doing the thing.
You're out there for real.
Yeah, and I've always seen you out there too.
Yeah.
You are a person who caught my eye because you clearly know a lot about sales and you work with training people and helping managers train better. But you've also just always struck me as a person who is very much yourself. You always find ways to have fun. Your stuff is very funny, and it looks from the outside to be very effortless. And I know whenever somebody's doing that, that actually means they've just worked very hard for a long time. So why don't you start by just talking about how you got into creating content in the first place?
Yeah. So I had started, actually, here's what happened is it's 2020 and the world shuts down. We're working from home. And I think I had realized, like, number one, I didn't really like where I was at in my career. I didn't necessarily um, feel like I was moving and progressing along in the way that I wanted to either. And so I just started doing some research. And research for me looked like I'm going to go look at all these people who are in positions or who are doing things that I really aspire to do. And as I was looking at their profiles, they were all part of this one community. At the time it was called Revenue Collective. It's now called Pavilion. So I'm like, all right, cool. Like, let me join this organization and see maybe there's something there that's going to help me progress in my career. And also I think it'll be very helpful for me to connect with other folks who are in my position. And as I was entering into that community, whoever it was, the person I talked to who kind of said, hey, listen, we're going to admit you in, they just said, hey, for every one question that you ask the community, go out and find 5 questions that you can answer. So there was always this encouragement from the very, very beginning to go and find areas or go and find places where I could provide value. So as I started to do that within the Slack community, what started to happen was I became known for certain things like outbounding and building out SDR programs, and to an extent, some sales management as well. So I started to kind of build up this level of credibility and authority within this community. And I thought to myself, if I could do this in the Slack community, that's probably a small microcosm or a reflection of a broader community on LinkedIn. Like, let me bring the conversations over onto the social platform. So that's really what got me started on, let me create content on LinkedIn. It was because I was creating content, or at least I wasn't even thinking about creating content. I was thinking about, hey, where can I offer up value to somebody's question somewhere? And then over time, I was like, oh, I got a lot of, I think, solid things to provide and a lot of value to offer in some very specific areas. And now I've kind of got also a crew of people who are willing to support me as well on LinkedIn. So I wasn't as hesitant or apprehensive about starting on that journey. So that's really how I got started on LinkedIn.
That's so interesting because I have like a similar progression in my life. You know, I spent a lot of time doing stuff in my 20s, but kind of half assing it,
Mm,
you
yeah.
know? And I think that comes from a place of insecurity. And for me, it was like everything I'm doing on LinkedIn was kind of an accident. Like, I didn't think I was going to be a sales trainer. The world just kind of suddenly changed and video became way more important. And I just happened to have more experience doing that than 99.9% of sellers. And when that happened, I was like, okay, well, nobody teaches this video prospecting thing. So I'm just going to do it, you know, because I could just see immediately that I was better at it than everybody on my team, including people who were much better than me at sales. You
Mm,
know, they were very good at sales. They were very good at cold calling. They could not do the video thing, you know, and I could just like crank out 25 videos in an afternoon and set 5 meetings. And I was like,
yeah.
whoa, this is nuts, you know? So I just went all in on it. But I didn't think I was really going to be a content creator. I certainly didn't think I was going to be doing comedy again. I hadn't done a show in 3 years, and I didn't think I could do comedy on the internet because I didn't
Mm,
think anybody would laugh. You know,
interesting.
I didn't think I was funny enough. And I just started putting stuff out there about sales. And I would have these little cutaway moments where I needed to like talk to somebody on the phone. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to record me as a different character. And they were kind of funny. And I started surveying my audience, and everybody I surveyed was like, do more of whatever that was. I really enjoyed that. But yeah, it was kind of accidental. And it was only once I felt I had something like valuable, like I can teach you this and you'll make money, that was when I was able to start putting myself out there. And
Mm,
then once it started landing, I was like, okay, I could do this all the time, you know? So yeah, I guess, so, you know, you talk about adding value in this community. When did you
mm,
start having fun? Because the version of you I see, you're at conferences, you're letting loose, you are dancing, you are more joyful
yeah.
than most people are doing this stuff. So when did that come in to this? Like, I want to advance my career in sales. When did the fun become part of the equation?
Um, I don't think I've had a like intentional effort to have fun until probably earlier this year. I sense that something changed with LinkedIn towards the end of last year where I know for myself, like I could rely on, I'm going to put out a piece of content, and the majority of the time I'm going to get a certain amount of engagement, like likes, for example. And then I started putting out content, and then I only would get a maybe like a quarter or half of what I would typically expect. And then all of a sudden I started to realize, like, wow, I've actually associated so much of my own worth and peace and a sense of enoughness that is all tethered to people engaging with my content. And I was unwell. I was unwell for like a month or so. And then I had to like take a break. I had to step away and really like rethink, what is my relationship with LinkedIn gonna be? Is it I'm in this world of just pining after people liking my stuff and that's all it's ever gonna be? I'm like, if that's the case, I'm never gonna post again. And so instead I was like, you know what do I have to lose? Like, I'm posting out these things that I think are really thoughtful and really insightful, and I'm not really getting anything I'm not getting a lot of feedback from it. But I love to dance, and I'm at home, and I love working from home, and I get to hang out with my dogs, and I scroll through TikTok, and I some people doom scroll. I like joy scroll, right? So there's certain things where I'm like, okay, like I see myself as being able to do this dance, and I see myself as being able to have fun on social, and I'm doing these things on these other channels anyways. Like, what happens if I'm able to cross that chasm and bring that onto LinkedIn, where it's not for other people anymore, and it's not that I'm trying to win anybody over. It's just I am thoroughly enjoying myself, and I think that people I think about the people who I've thankfully come across who've just you just tell they're just so self-possessed. Like, they enjoy their lives, they have clarity as to who they are. They're just willing just to be completely and truly authentically themselves, and I know what kind of impact that's had on me and allowing me and giving me an invitation to do that for myself too. So I'm like, all right, like why don't I just do that for me? Like, let me just be myself, my goofy shake my ass self like when I'm at home. Like, again,
Yeah.
I just walk around my house and I do goofy dances. You're not going to catch me singing on LinkedIn because I don't want to do that to anybody. But like, I love to sing around the house, and so I'm like, this feels good. I like the way it looks on LinkedIn. I'm enjoying myself, and it seems like people enjoy the fact that I'm enjoying myself. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Real quick, we got some great commenters here. We've got Randy, we've got John, Kelly from Seattle. We've got Andrew and Nathan, Jess V, Andrew, Lauren Sermon. So many people out there in the comments. Love having you all here. And yeah, this is a thing we're going to get into a lot in the second half too. But yeah, especially on a place like LinkedIn where there's so much tension, especially in like a field like sales where there's so much pressure.
Mm,
I find it can be really refreshing for people to just be someone they don't have to put on an act in front of. you
yeah.
know when people feel like they can be themselves around you, they feel like they don't have to put on a facade either. And, Andrew's got a question here. Chris, was this process of finding video that stuck with your audience trial and error? How long did it take to find the content that stuck? It was pretty hard to deny that the fun stuff worked better for me. you know um like, literally directly, if I make a video that's funny enough, I'll probably get like an inbound client that might be like a 5-figure consulting deal or training deal or something like that. And like, that was actually one of the first ones I ever had where I knew it was a success, was because I put a lot of hard work into it to make it a good comedy sketch. And then yeah, I just kind of had like a 3-month deal just fall into my lap. And as a guy who had never run a business before, that was such an earth-shattering moment for me, because I never knew I could ask for that kind of money just from myself. And it was undeniable. Like, I put this thing out there. It's me. I'm playing different versions of me. I am like doing the kind of sketch comedy I did at Chicago's Second City, and like, literally somebody saw it and sent me a LinkedIn email being like, hey, I need a video coach, like, let's talk. So like, I kind of can't, it's not like a fuzzy, oh, I like to feel this way kind of a thing. It is on some point, but literally, if I make it funny enough, I will get more money. And like, I just can't, like, the bank account doesn't lie. um Interesting. So, was there ever any pressure? Did you ever feel any pressure not to be yourself? Because I know sometimes people look at my stuff and they're like, "Oh, dude, I could never do what you're doing. I'd sell to like serious people," and I'm like, "Oh, I sell to serious people too." But if I had a boss, they might not be as gung ho on Vague Man as I am. So, did you ever feel any sort of tension where you're like, I want to do this, but I'm afraid maybe it's not going to be professional enough, quote unquote, for somebody else?
Uh So I think there's like my position. So I'm an SDR manager, a culture amp. Like, so I'm very an internal person. So I'm not customer facing. So I think that's something that's probably important to note there.
Mhm.
However, so I made this post like within the last couple of months, and I'm dancing in the post, and there's one person who had commented on this post and was like, hey, like, is this TikTok. I thought this was LinkedIn. And I just asked the person, hey, like, what's the intention in you asking me this question? Because the same person had also asked me a very similar question to a different video, another video where I was dancing again. And so the person says, I'm curious because I thought that LinkedIn was more of a professional network, but now it seems to be something. Now it seems like it's more like Facebook or TikTok or something. And so I think this person, at least what I interpreted from it was, all right, the content that you'd post on TikTok or link or on Facebook, for example, or me dancing is somehow not professional. And so even when I'm coaching my reps and they're like, all right, I'm doing a cold call and I feel like I need to sound a certain way because I need to sound professional. I'm like, what the hell does professional mean? Like, you, by virtue of you being employed at this company, you are a professional. Like that. So that's what I'm like, like just you having signed your employment contract, like you are a professional here. Whether you act like it is something different, but like you are a professional. And the thing that's actually going to help you do much better is when people when you are able to stand out. And the only way you can stand out is by you being you, right? So of course we want to be mindful of the kinds of words that we use, and we want to be considerate of the kind of environment that we're in. But that doesn't mean that all of a sudden you take or you put a mask on to try and conform to something. So I think when I think about what this person had said to me of, hey, it seems like this is not professional, I was just like, I can't relate to what you're saying. I have no idea what you mean by professional. Like, I wear purple braids and I have a septum piercing and I have tattoos on my arms. And guess what? I also make a shit ton of money because I'm really good at my job. Right. So, like, I can dance, I can do whatever, and I can be really good at my job. And like, none of that, me having fun while being good at what I do, nothing takes away from me being professional.
Yeah, and professional, I mean, like, let's be real. Like, throughout the history of business, where does business get done? The golf course and like sports games, and not so much anymore, but used to be strip clubs. And,
Oh
it's like
gosh.
there was all these places they would go have conversations in these more informal places
Mm,
for these really like important transactions that were happening. So for me,
yeah.
it's like, you think my Vageman sketch isn't professional? Well, it's making me money. You know what I don't think is professional? Your cringy cold email templates that somebody told you was correct that I'm not going to open or respond to me, that's unprofessional. The stuff that people are doing out there that is trying to be like correct, to look like everybody else, that's just annoying me and wasting my time. Like, again, we're in an attention economy. The most interesting thing you can be is just a regular person, because that's what most people are afraid to be online.
Yeah. Isn't there something, it's like a Dr. Seuss thing, but it's, something along the lines of like, there's no you or you than you, something like that. But I'll have to like look up the quote exactly. But I think there's just something really beautiful about the uniqueness of every single person. And when somebody's able to step into their truest expression of themselves, like that to me is magic, right? So I can think about, all right, when I think about all the people who said something and it truly moved me, and like whether it moved me to tears, whether it moved me to laugh, whether it moved me to anger, it was probably because they were speaking some like undeniable truth from like their most honest self. And so I think especially like within sales, like we're trying to influence or persuade people, and I don't mean that in a negative sense, but it's like, or it's like, hey, like we're trying to get somebody to see a way of being, right, a way of operating that potentially is better than what they know today. And then we're supposed to like go in and ask questions to help inform what that looks like, and hopefully that in like informing process lands them to partner with us. Right now, if I'm over here thinking about being somebody different than myself, can I really focus on, hey, how can I move somebody to see what's possible for themselves? No, I can't do it that well. So, like, whether this happens over a cold call, a cold email, if it happens over a video that you send to somebody directly or a video that somebody else sees, the only way that you're going to inspire someone is to you yourself, like, be inspiring. So, I
Yep.
just don't think that you can be inspiring if you haven't even gotten right with, like, hey, like, who am I and how do I wish to show up in the world? And am I actually aligned to that?
Yeah, Lauren, thank you for sharing the quote from Dr. Seuss. Today you are you. That is truer than true. There is no one alive who is youer than you.
And
So
that's the beauty. That's
that
the
is,
beauty.
and that is a beautiful segment or beautiful segue to Gimme Gimme. GB,
Gimme, gimme.
do you want
Yes.
to do Gimme Gimme?
Let's do it.
All right. So this is a very important part of the show that we always do because there's a lot of misconceptions about LinkedIn. People see LinkedIn, it gets a lot of hate. People talk a lot of smack about LinkedIn, but they don't understand its true purpose. There's a lot of crazy advice out there saying that LinkedIn is just for making friends and just for showing up and selflessly giving away value and asking for nothing in return. But we all know the truth. LinkedIn was designed for self-promotion. It was the only website, it was the only social media network that was designed for you to go out there and get new jobs, get new opportunities, and make money. So this is the part of the show where I like to pop into character, and my guest and I ask my audience for exactly what we want from them. So GB, you ready to do Gimme Gimme?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it. Hello! Welcome to another episode of Gimme Gimme. It's Boss Bogue here. GB, my audience is here today. They have money. What do you want from them?
Hey, listen, everyone. Sorry, that's hilarious. I really want you to subscribe to my newsletter. It's called the One-on-One. At super high level, like there's some stat that says the majority of managers don't receive training until they're 12 years into the role. And the way I think about this is like that's 12 years of potentially traumatizing everybody that ever comes into like your team. So the one-on-one is really set to help equip sales managers to have like the skills, the tools, the resources, the tactics to be a better manager. So yeah, over
Scan
there, the QR code.
Scan the
it.
barcode.
And follow me on LinkedIn. Like you don't even have to like yeah, if you want to give me money. I'll send you my Cash App, but you could just subscribe.
Yeah, no, trust me. My audience could use the tips, all right? 12 years until you start getting training? Are you insane? Have you ever met an SDR? It's not a gazelle, folks. It can't start running the moment it's born, okay? You have to nurture them a little bit. You have to show them how they can walk before they can run. And anybody who's ever been an SDR knows that's not how it goes. They drop you in the middle of a pit on day one, and they expect that 30% of you aren't going to make it past 2 months. You need better training than that. Get out there and subscribe to the One-on-One. It's a great newsletter, and GB is super nice. You should definitely connect with her.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Boss Bogue.
Hey, no problem. And by the way, while you're out there, why don't you buy my shit? Okay? Why doesn't everybody at home just pay me? All right? You see me out here getting the laughs every day. I'm not even funny. All right? I'm funny by comparison. All right? Have you seen the content on LinkedIn? It is dog shit, folks. We can all do better than that. And it's very easy. You can bring me in to train your company. I do training. I do individual training. I do corporate training, corporate consulting. I do all sorts of things. And you can even buy my course, The Complete Guide to Selling on Video. It is my guide to video prospecting. It is 2.5 hours long of original footage, original lessons. We go deep onto every single section from on-camera performance to list building to top of funnel, mid funnel, referrals, editing, LinkedIn, Gmail, captions. We cover it all, baby. It is like a fine Charlie Parker jazz solo, okay? You got to listen for the notes that I'm not playing. I'm not going out there doing the amateur stuff that your sales reps who haven't been trained on video are doing. I'm out there making it short and sweet and polite, and it can all be yours, and it's funny. Who else is making LinkedIn sales training content that's actually funny? I haven't met them yet. GB, you got anything else?
No, that's all. That's all. Sign up, subscribe, and yeah, get Boss Bogue some money.
Excellent. Yeah, this is all going to go back into making more wonderful content for you. It all goes into making cooler and better and bigger stuff. This has been Gimme Gimme. Iggy, roll the tape. Time. Today's message comes from Kent Picato, all the way in Hobbitsville, Michigan. Kent writes, "Dear Chris, I love your funny commercials, but why don't you ever try to make a serious one about your course, showing us the real benefits? Well, let's give it a try, Kent. Hello, I'm Dr. Funkenstein. You don't have to be a scientist to understand the science of Chris Bogue's Guide to Selling on Video. Most sellers suffer from a condition known as they don't make enough videos. The Chris Bogue method will teach you how to make many videos fast. I already send out 100 videos a week and I never get any responses. What the heck is wrong? Great question. You might be suffering from a condition known as your videos are long and awkward. I recommend making them short and kind of delightful. My problem is that I'm a failure who's bad at sales. Is that a problem? Of course not. A recent study on quota attainment reveals that most sales teams don't know how to sell either. By the time you're done with the complete guide to selling on video, you'll be ahead of the game. I paid for sales training once before. It was lame. Your training was probably not fun and contained 0 Wegman bits. The complete guide to selling on video is fun and contains a few Wegman bits. My videos don't have captions. Should they? Sellers who use quality captions in their prospecting videos see an increase of up to 400% in open and response rates. That sounds scientific. Yeah, sure. Is this one of those courses that cost $3,000? I can't afford that. That is wrong. The complete guide to selling on video costs only $199 when you use promo code GIMMEGIMME at chrisbogue.io. Get yours today, and when you hit your quota, tell him Dr. Funkenstein sent you. Dr. Funkenstein is not a doctor and does not claim to be one. Statements by Dr. Funkenstein are of his own opinion and do not reflect the opinions of Chris Bogue or Chris Bogue Communications, LLC. Talk to your sales manager to learn if video selling is right for you. Side effects may include confidence on camera, increased pipeline velocity, and mild bouts of laughter. If you experience an erection lasting longer than 13 hours, it may be due to a health issue unrelated to the complete guide to selling on video, at which point, talk to your doctor to see if continuing the course is right for you. Well, I tried. Thanks anyway, Kent, and we'll give it another shot next week. And we're back.
Hello.
Yeah, so I did get a comment on that last video we saw where someone's like, is that last joke about the 13-hour erection, is that really appropriate for LinkedIn? To which I say, well, my Stripe account sure seems to think it is. So, that's a great segment to our next topic. So we're going to talk a little bit here about the mental blocks that hold people back. I certainly know like what held me back, and I try to share that. I think you are an interesting person to talk to about this because I am interested simultaneously in like how you got past your own self to become the version of you that you want to be.
Ooh.
But also you work with SDRs. And again, that is often people who are new to sales. There is a lot of failure built into the role, even when you're doing it well. Like, especially if you're doing it well, you are being rejected constantly, and that is not fun. So yeah, I don't know which you'd want to start with, but the mental blocks that you had to overcome or the mental blocks that you help others overcome. I'm kind of interested in both.
Yeah. I think it's a great question, and I'm trying to figure out exactly where I want to start here. I think there's this quote. It's a Confucius quote. I think it's from Confucius anyways, and it says something along the lines of like, be mindful of your thoughts, they become your words. Be mindful of your words, they become your actions. Be mindful of your actions, they become your habits, and be mindful of your habits because they become your destiny or your nature or your fate, right? So I remember it was years ago when I really started to think about kind of like the experience, like my external experience, and I was like, this is not really what I want, right? So like maybe I need to do some inner work. And so when I think about that Confucius quote, I really started to think about, well, where do like thoughts come from exactly? And I landed on this idea of like, I think they come from like the beliefs that we hold, whether we're aware of them or we're not aware of them. So for myself, I'm like, all right, hey, if I'm not doing well in a certain situation, or if I feel like, man, I'm a victim, it's probably because I believe that somehow, some way, I'm never going to be able to overcome the situation. And so when I got when I became aware of like, what are my thoughts and what are the deep rooted beliefs that are spitting these thoughts out that are then guiding everything around me, I can start to challenge those beliefs, and I can go like, all right, like if I don't believe that I'm good enough, right? Or if I don't feel like I'm going to be able to amount to the next person unless they do worse than me. Um, is that a belief that I really want to hold towards myself? And so I think I really just had a one first and foremost, like become a lot more aware of how am I thinking and how am I talking to myself and yeah, sure, like I have this belief, but like, do I want to keep having this belief? Does that help me get any closer to where I want to go? And a lot of the times the answer was no. I'm like, it's not. So I need to adopt something that's different that actually helps me get that much closer to the person that I really aspire to become.
I want to push on one thing you just said there. Where do these thoughts come from? I would posit that often they come from other people. And one of the reasons why I left sales and did my own thing was because like that leaderboard can mess with your head. And, like for all intents and purposes, when you are being ranked by others, that affects how you see yourself. And I've noticed a lot of toxic trends in management where, it's like they want you to control what you can control, but not everything is in your control. And sometimes things are outside of your control and like your performance suffers or your engagement suffers on LinkedIn or something. And other people can make you feel like you are lesser. They can make you feel like you are not a
I
worthwhile person.
disagree. I
Go ahead.
disagree.
Yeah.
I disagree. I think I don't disagree fully, but I'll say this is I've gotten to a point, and granted, it takes a lot of work, and I think it takes a lot of awareness too, a reflection time, and it takes being very mindful of who you surround yourself by as well. I think but for me, I got to a point where I'm like, I just know who I am. So other people can go out of their way to try and make me feel a certain way, but I can always choose to go, is that me? Is that mine? Right? Like if I'm like, yeah, so that's why I'm saying like I think there's these times where like even if I have a thought of like, oh man, I don't think that this is gonna work, right? I'll pause and go, what's going on here? Right? Like this is a thought that I have that's if I run with this, if I don't change it, it's probably like, yeah, things are not gonna work. So like what's actually going on here? And so it might be a matter of, hey, listen, the reason why I don't feel like things are gonna work, it's not a it's not a personality trait for me. It might be that actually the environment that I'm in is not an environment that's conducive to my success. That doesn't mean that I'm not successful. It just means that this environment is not conducive to my success. If I put myself in a different environment, right, it's like, cool, awesome. However, if I stay in that environment, it might be because wow, I don't actually believe that I can be successful, and I think that this lack of success that I'm having right now is actually a reflection of me as a person and my abilities. So like it's
Yeah.
I will say there's been a lot of people who've like gone out of their way to tell me in very choice words like what they think about me and how they think I show up, and I have to gently go, you don't pay my bills, I don't even like you that much, and at the end of the day, what you say about me literally does not matter.
Yeah. Well, no, I think we're in agreement here. For me, it was like, I figured out the video thing. I like smashed my quota that campaign, and it was awesome. Then we had another campaign that was traditionally a lot harder. Like 90% of the team missed quota, and they basically want to treat it as like 90% of us were just broken and messed up. And
Mm,
it was one of those things where like, again, I was going through therapy at the time. I was working
yeah.
with and I was kind of taking inventory of my life. But I realized at that moment, it's like, okay, maybe you see me down here. That's not how I see me. And I have to go do something somewhere else
Mm,
because like I'm not gonna be in a place that makes me feel like I'm down here when I know I can be when I'm in front of people, when I'm prospecting, when I am like going deep on a call, when I'm listening, when I'm working with like high level people, they see all these great things in me. And like, yeah, it takes a lot of awareness and it takes a lot of confidence and self-assuredness to be like, you
mm,
know what? I'm not successful in this environment. It's not necessarily that something's wrong with me. It's not even necessarily that something is wrong with this environment, but I have to objectively say, my skills that I am strongest at are not serving me here. So I need to put myself in a context where those skills can be an advantage and not a hindrance.
Yeah, yeah. I heard this quote. I can't remember where it was, but it was talking about the difference between, or it talked about there's some nuances between like self or being confident in yourself and then the esteem that you have for yourself. So like, listen, confidence is like a little bit of a roller coaster, right? It's like much more variable, while esteem is something you want to be consistent. So for myself, if I'm like, all right, even if I don't feel like if I'm trying something new, I'm in a new role, I'm at a new company, I might not be confident just yet because everything is new. I'm still trying to figure out like what am I supposed to even anticipate? How do I respond to certain situations? Everything is new. However, like for me, I always say, but I'm a really great learner, right? If there's anything I can do, I can learn really well and I can learn really fast. And I can probably learn much better than the majority of people around me. I don't mean that people are bad at it. I'm just saying like that is a strength of mine. And I've known that for a very long time. So it doesn't really matter if I'm failing one moment, like just very quantitatively, like, hey, listen, my team hits 50% of its number, let's say. I'm like, no, like, you're right. I'm not doing like, number specifically right now. I'm not doing a satisfactory job. Don't worry about it though, right? Because here's what I am going to do to impact this number, right? I can manage up to share like, hey, if something's not working, I'm going to do my best to try and figure out why that is. I'll share the options, I'll review, I'll get people bought into all these things. And if it's something that's really like outside of our control, it really is outside of our control. And either the company is going to uh like acknowledge, accept, and adjust the situation, or they're not. But I'm like, hey, listen, at the end of the day, I know what I'm capable of. I know I'm capable of being phenomenal and I'm going to do the work in order to get there. Now, most of the time that formula has worked very well. Granted, there are situations where like you can do the absolute best. You can hit the numbers. You don't even have to be failing at the job. And you still will run into people who will say, you're not good enough.
Yes. Yes.
Right? Like that situation still happens. Doesn't matter if you hit 20% of your number or you absolutely smashed it. There are some people who are not capable or who choose not to do that work of building up their self-esteem. And so you as a confident human being come into the situation and you are so wildly yourself and you are a glaring sign to that person that says, hey, listen, you are so like to that person, it'll just trigger their insecurity. So in
Yeah.
certain situations, right? Like that's why I say like no one's really gonna sure people can hurt my feelings for a day or two, but I always have a choice as to how I wish to engage in the situation and who I want to be in the situation.
Well,
Um,
I,
so I yeah.
I want my audience to understand that though, and this is kind of what the episode is about here. So I like to, the type of person I am, I would consider myself a happy warrior.
Mm,
If something is not going well, my instinct is like, well, let's just go try something different then.
yep.
Let's go talk, let's go get deeper and more interested in the problem. I realized at some point when if there's a leader or if there's a person who like something screws up and they're just trying to make me feel bad,
Mm,
I view that as their character flaw, not mine.
yeah. Yeah.
And part of the work that I did, like having to kind of collect myself, and again, I've mentioned on the show before, like I've had my dark times. I only started this business because I was going through a divorce and I was really like unhappy where I was in my life, and I took inventory of, and this is something I recommend everybody do. I'm like, literally write down every single time in your life that you were able to win. What were you doing? Was that in school? Was that in sports? Was that in business?
Mm,
For me, that was sometimes on comedy stages. Sometimes I was playing music. Sometimes I was coaching other people and working with other people. And I'm like, I kind of had to rearrange things. So I'm like, how can I spend as much time doing the things I'm good at and spending as little time as possible beating myself up about stuff that's already in the past? And that's kind of my thing that I tell the people. And like I was a speech team kid, if anyone at home can't tell. And one thing that I realized as an adult was like you would go into a finals round, and if you're in finals or state finals or something, you've got multiple judges there and they're ranking you from 1 to 6 because there's 6 people in the round. And there was a million times where I would have 3 judges, and one would give me the 1 would give me the 3, and one would give me the 6. That was one performance, you know? And the lesson I take from that is sometimes you're going to be amazing and you're playing for an audience where you can't win. And the solution isn't to beat yourself up. It's to go find a different room that you can win it. You know, that same performance in a different organization might put you over the top. That might put you on like the track to leadership. But sometimes you're just in a place where it's just not working out, and you have to do that internal work. And I'm curious, when you say internal work, like, what do you mean by that, GB?
Ooh. So from what I did in terms of the internal work, I've heard people call like shadow work or inner child work, for example. But for me, what it was I was like, you know what, I just need to get to know myself a little bit better outside of just what I have to offer within a role where I have a W-2, right? So like for me, it was I'm gonna like I was like I'm a voracious journaler. And so what ended up happening was like I would just write down, like it was kind of automatic writing, like whatever I was thinking, I would just write it down. And then I wouldn't judge what I was writing at all. And maybe I would pause and I would really take stock of like, this is how I talk to myself. Like this is what I really think about myself. And I had to think about it from like a best friend angle. Like if I were to ever say these things to the people who care the most about me, like they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, Gabrielle, no, like you gotta treat yourself better." So I really had to start doing that for my own self. And first started off with taking stock of just what is the monkey brain chatter, right? So I think it was gaining awareness of myself through the journaling exercises. I got a coach, I had a therapist, so you know I can only be as good as I know how to be, and so I looked for who are the people or what are the resources that I can go and invest in to help me become aware of like my own blind spots. Who are the people that I can trust to challenge my beliefs as well? What are the different healing modalities that seem to resonate the most for me? And I think like a big piece of this was also drawing boundaries. I think is big time inner work as well. So a boundary is like, hey, for me, I know that uh, uh, if I get up in the morning and I get straight to work, I'm a crankster. Like, don't I don't want to be around anybody. Nobody wants to be around me. However, I know that if I allow myself to have like 2-3 hours in the morning before I get into work or log on to my computer, like I actually can be happy and joyful and crack jokes and, you know, have a good time with my team. So, or like, hey, there's certain conversations that I will have with people and certain conversations I won't have with people. And there's also certain things that a boundary means, hey, listen, if you talk to me crazy at work, and crazy means that you're calling me names, you're coming after, you know, you're saying ridiculous things to my people, you're being harassing or discriminatory or or wildly arrogant in a way that feels like a personal attack to me, I will kindly let you know that you're crossing a boundary, and I'll also kindly let you know there's a consequence to that too. I'm not going to handle that, but HR will, right? So I think for me, it really was just going like, I'm going to get to know myself better. I'm going to challenge myself to be a much better friend to myself. I'm going to like assemble like my like Autobots team like to come in and like support me in the areas that I'm not quite developed in, but they can help compensate for that and then also allow me the space to grow in those areas. And lastly, like really being clear as to what I do allow and what I don't allow in my space. And then and holding firm to that.
Yeah. So this is like, you are speaking my language, because this is one thing that I am very adamant about that I've learned over these past couple years. I say, be careful about what you put into your mind.
Mhm.
You know, um, there's a finite amount of attention. There is a finite amount of mental space. Like I had to like, for me, it was a consciously like stopping paying attention to things in the media that made me angry. And instead of like listening to like the podcast that made me angry, I started listening to albums from like my favorite jazz artists. And
Mhm.
suddenly these hours where I used to just spend time again fixating on things that I had no control over, it kind of opened up some more long-term kind of thinking, and it was more playful, and I got all these sounds in my head, and I started playing music after a 15-year hiatus because I was like, I've got these sounds stuck in my head. I want to be able to actually put them out there myself. And
Mm.
I'm writing a book. It's called Soliloquy. I call, if somebody purchases my coaching, my one-on-one coaching, that's called Soliloquy training, because it's, for me, it's the ancient art of talking to the audience,
Mhm.
um, and all those insecurities you have, all your failures, all your frustrations, the audience doesn't know that. For the most part, it's like we have a limited sphere of influence. If you're not a mega celebrity out there, especially if you're in sales, they don't know who you are. And I'm just very attracted to this idea of, like, when you turn on the camera, you can be anyone you want, and you can choose to be the version of yourself that you want to be. You can choose to be the version of yourself that your audience needs you to be. And for me, it was, the act of having to watch myself on video. And I always thought everyone was just so much better than me. I was always directing shows because I'm like, well, I'm going to put funnier people in here because they'll do it better than me. The audience will like them better than me. And when it was just me on the camera talking straight to the audience, I could kind of objectively look at myself and be like, what do I have to work with here?
Yep.
I have storytelling gifts here. I have, there's a lot going on here that I can work with. And again, that mode of thinking of just like, what's right in front of me, what could I do to connect with the people I need to connect with, helps me so much more than people who are negative or people who want to rub my face in my failures or my shortcomings. And I just don't have time for people like that anymore. And if you're at home, if you're listening to this, it can be one of the hardest things to do because you can feel like you're trapped, but like, yeah, the solution is very often you need to be around other people. You need to put yourself in a space where you can be supported.
Yeah, or sometimes you just gotta go be alone for a moment. Like,
Oh,
I
yes.
yeah, like, like, "Hey, listen, you know what? I'm over." I will say this for me, I'm, like, a very, like, empathic person, like, in the way that it shows up for me is, let's say if I'm around someone and they're experiencing a high degree of, like, of anxiety, like, I sense it in my body, like, I can sense it on my skin, I'm like, "What is this?" And so that's why I ask the question of, like, if I'm feeling a certain way about something and I'm like, "Wait a minute, is this mine? Like, is this even mine to carry?" So, like, I'll give you an example, I was at my mom's, about a month ago, and so that's on all my mom's business. Like one of the things that I know my mom has always been like very conscious about is her physique. And so like I feel really good about like myself and my physique. Like I eat whatever I want, but I work out very hard. So I'm like, yes, but I remember I went to the house, my mom wasn't home, and within like 24 hours, I remember feeling like super self-conscious and very self-aware of like my actual body. And I'm like, why do I feel so uncomfortable when literally 2 days ago I was like, damn girl, you so fine. And I had to take this moment and go like, hey, listen, like, is this actually mine or is this because and I look around my mom's house and she has a lot of things that are focused on like her nutrition and her weight and those kinds of things. So like you can tell that's something that's just an energy that's in that house. So for me, again, like I'm like, is whatever I'm sensing, is whatever I'm feeling, is this actually mine to carry? And if it's not, then there's sometimes that I like for me personally, I need to just go and kind of like be by myself for a little bit and detox. Like energetically detox or like for you if you're like hey listen instead of watching things or ingesting content that triggers a certain internal experience that's not ideal for me, I do this instead. Like I'm like okay, I need to get back into my own homeostasis, my internal homeostasis, whether it means like taking a bath or getting a massage or getting a facial or going for a walk or talking to my grandma, like or it might just be you know what I need to just go under the cover. I need to go lay
Yeah.
down in my bed and like just go under the covers and just like cut off all like stimulus whatsoever to help bring me back to basically just to help ground me back down into myself.
Yeah. So I am a big fan of solitude. It surprises people when I tell them that I'm an introvert. They don't
Mm,
believe it because they see me looking very outgoing on video. And the thing they don't realize is the difference between what I'm doing now and what I used to be doing is now I can shut it off when I want to.
mm,
You know, um, there are times where, because I try to give 100% of myself to the camera at all times, and that includes a Zoom meeting. I really try, if I'm sitting there in a Zoom meeting for a company I'm advising with or whatever, I am really trying not to multitask. I'm trying to give myself fully to that moment, listen fully, be 100% present. But that means I want that meeting to be done when we say it's going to be done, and I'm going to shut it off and I'm going to go do something else. And, I see a lot of people getting burned out on LinkedIn. And, I've got conflicting ideas on LinkedIn. I think, despite it being toxic sometimes, I actually think it's one of the more positive social networks. But whenever I see someone getting burned out because they can't make daily content anymore or their engagement is taking a dip or something, I'm like, you can just leave and come back. You know, show me a great artist, show me a great musician or a great actor or a great writer or a great painter who was on 24/7 all the time. That doesn't happen. Great artists disappear and reemerge. Like almost every great artist you've ever heard of had some period of time where they just weren't doing public stuff and then they
mm,
just got back into it. And I'm
mm.
like, gang, like LinkedIn's not going away. Like we all still have our resumes there. If you want to take a month or two off and do literally anything else and come back, you're going to be fine. You know, you can step away if these thoughts in your head, if you're doing this and it's persistently giving you stress, sometimes the answer is simple as you just need to not do that for a little bit.
Yeah, and I realize we're like only got 7 minutes left, and I'm sure there's going to be a whole closeout here. I think this goes back to the boundaries piece of things, and there is such a thing as like there's people who can cross your boundaries, right? Or they're tiptoeing on crossing your boundaries, and then you set and you maintain and you reinforce the boundary. There's that, but you also have to do that for yourself too. So like one of the biggest people to ever betray a person is themselves. And so and a lot of this might and it's not on purpose all the time. It just is like, all right, I just didn't even know that this was important to me. But if it's like, all right, you're going on LinkedIn or you're working at a job or you're in a relationship or you have a certain habit, like a spending habit, let's say, and there are certain like by virtue of like taking these actions consistently where it's a habit and you're drained, that to me is an opportunity for you to also recognize like what are the boundaries that you need to uphold with yourself. Like I've had that moment of like, oh man, I feel like I'm doing all this stuff on LinkedIn and I'm actually I feel terrible about it. Like this is not enjoyable. I kind of dread it. I don't feel like I'm my absolute best. And it wasn't easy to go, oh, I'm going to pull off of LinkedIn, but I definitely it me taking a step away from it for and it might have only been like a couple of weeks, but during those couple of weeks I really thought about okay, like obviously there's something that's very imbalanced in this relationship or this dynamic that I have with a social media platform. Like I was like, I wasn't embarrassed about it, but I was just like, is this it? I'm like, I don't know that I actually want to have this kind of turmoil over a social media platform. So this is an invitation for me to readjust my expectations and then also I think reclaim like ownership of how I wish to engage with whatever it is that I'm doing. So whether if it's been a company that I've been at and I'm like, wow, at one point in time it was a really great company. I really loved working there. And then all of a sudden it wasn't. I can't approach like if the situation has changed, I can't approach a situation the same way that I approached it when things were completely different. Like that's a mismatch. Like I have to be willing to adjust. I have to be willing to get uncomfortable and I have to trust in my ability to get myself to a much better place. Like, yeah, that's my thought.
Yeah. That all resonates with me. And this is something I know I've said in a previous episode, but I'll just say it again for anybody that needs to hear it. Boundaries aren't fun even when they work. Like if someone crosses one of your boundaries and you're like, hey, you crossed one of my boundaries and I don't appreciate that. And I want you to not do that again. I want you to respect this. Even if that person is like, okay, I'm sorry, and they never make that mistake again, it doesn't feel 100% great on either end. And that's fine. You know, I feel like a lot of what holds people back from being like the greatest version of themselves is they need to avoid tension at all costs. And I'm like, hey, like there's a little bit of a tension, and of course in sales this is huge, but it's like just because there's a little bit of tension doesn't mean it's bad, you know. And for me it was like I had to lose a lot in my life before I had to kind of confront some of these things and set boundaries for myself. But again, even when it's good, it's not always easy and it doesn't
Yeah.
always feel great, but that doesn't mean that's not worth doing.
Yeah. Yeah, couldn't agree more. I think I have a spiritual mentor, and she says, transformation isn't easy.
No, no. Turning into a butterfly as a caterpillar must suck. That must be confusing and painful.
It's very I Google it. I Googled it like last week or the week before. Like there's some enzymes that release where basically the like caterpillar has to like eat itself.
Oh Lord, that's awful.
Yeah, like yeah. It's basically yeah, it's I mean, it goes through basically like a whole death process to be reborn again. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think that's a fitting way to end the show because you know who
Yes.
makes it look easy? Butterflies. They're sitting around there landing on princesses. Yeah, you think that's easy just to flutter around like that? They were disgusting, spiny caterpillars that had to eat themselves. But in the end, it's worth it,
It's
you
worth
know?
it. It's
So,
worth it. They got
uh,
their wings and they flew to greater heights.
yeah, once you have those wings, you appreciate it, and people are like, oh, that must be nice. And it's like, yeah, it takes a little bit of work. So GB, I could sit here and talk with you all day. Unfortunately, we are out of time, but I would like to once again throw it over to you for anybody who joined the episode late. Where can they find you? Where should they go if they want more of your content?
Yes, absolutely. So follow me on LinkedIn, Gabrielle GB Blackwell. Also subscribe to my newsletter. It's called The One on One. It hits your inbox 11:30 a.m. Central Time every Thursday. There's also blog posts on it in case you missed the newsletter too. But it's my labor of love, and it's awesome.
Check it out. Scan the barcode you see on the screen. If you don't know how to do that, you switch your phone to camera mode. Scan it right up there. Make sure you subscribe to GB. She's amazing. Also, if you want to subscribe to me, you can go ahead, follow me on LinkedIn, ring the bell. I post new comedy all the time. I got Grayson Hogard from the Grove Cookie Company coming on 2 weeks from now. You bet your ass we've got a hilarious sketch about cookies coming up. And once again, if you want to purchase my course, The Complete Guide to Selling on Video, scan that barcode, use promo code GimmeGimme for $50 off. It is the funniest sales training guide you'll ever take. Probably. I haven't taken them all, but yeah, check it out. GB, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.